Lovely. Thank you all very much. So I'm Annie Merry. I work for an organisation called Faiths for Change. But beyond work, I feel quite deeply passionate and connected to a lot of the things that are already going on in this room. But for me personally, a really deep connection to the earth. And yeah, that kind of is it really. I'm conscious that we're now running 25 minutes behind, so I'm going to keep it fairly short and sweet, and I'll be around most of the day anyway, so if you want to have a chat about things, fantastic. So I just want to start with a bit of an introduction to our work, pop some photos up, and then just kind of quickly go through those. So just to say, I've worked in the same job, plus other jobs, for the last 18 years. So if I don't write some very basic notes to keep me on track, you know, you could still be here at lunchtime going, please God, finish. So, Faiths for Change. We're a community environmental charity. We're not a religious organisation. Our mission is to work in partnership with others to create a truly just and sustainable world where all flourish. We draw on our multi-faith and environmental roots. We were initially a project of the Right Reverend James Jones, former Bishop of Liverpool, back in 2004, but we're an environmental charity that began in 2010. So we've not lost sight of our beginnings, and there has been no end point. Our focus is to utilise the common ground of caring for the earth and its inhabitants, shared by people of religious faith, but also no religion or particular faith's belief. We know that our climate is changing and that people are responsible. I just wanted to share a little something from one of my favourite books, which is actually now quite old, called Thinking Like a Mountain, Towards a Council of All Beings. That I accidentally didn't take back to a college library about 30 years ago. So I did apologise and offer to return it some years later. But I think really for me to just share that kind of where I'm coming from personally, but our work is coming from, in that deep connection that we've also expressed in our activity together this morning. To survive our current environmental pressures, we must consciously remember our evolutionary and ecological inheritance. We must learn to think like a mountain. And one of my favourite quotes from Dogen Zenji, who's a Buddhist monk. When one thinks like a mountain, one thinks also like the black bear, so that honey dribbles down your fur as you catch the bus to work. I think also reflects what Rich was saying. Some humour, some celebration, because those things are really important. So I just want to introduce you very briefly to the three core areas of work that we have, clearly interrelated. Our projects are very much, and our work is very much a practical expression of engaging people in climate action, which is what I was asked to talk about, particularly at local level in communities across the city region, but also in Cheshire currently. We work in ways that actually are about collaboration. So we seek to work with people, and we seek to work with people who will benefit. So we shape things together, so they're in organic processes. So one of our three core areas is land-based work. This is just obviously these are just a really small snapshot of the work, but really just wanted to illustrate some kind of key themes really that comes through all of our work with these photos. So food, you know, it nurtures us in so many ways. Organic food for the soil, for ourselves, for our planet health, and also the key aspects of looking after the earth. When we tend the earth, we get to know the earth, we get to know the smell of the earth, and we find that connection with ourselves. But we can also grow food together and build relationships with each other. and understand each other, share our knowledge and education, our skills, and really shape our places together. And in a gentle activism that actually is a way, and there are other ways obviously from that, of challenging some of the status quo around food production and food waste, and the organisations behind it. So just a couple of pictures on the left from a couple of projects that we're working on. So it's a young people's group, top left at St Michael's in the City, which is just up there. I've got various flyers for groups and things that I'll share after. And the bottom one is relatively new space in Knotty-Ash, which is just off the Queen's Drive, where people are working together to reclaim a garden allotment site that had been disused for 20 years. So, and that's pretty amazing space too. So, second core area of work is circular economy, particularly focusing for the last 10, 15 years on textiles. Why textiles? Huge carbon cost of binning textiles. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you all about fast fashion and the impact on workers as well as the environment. So our education work, which is primarily where we sit on circular economy stuff, we work with whole school communities, homeschool communities and so on, and bring people together generally around a kind of November COP to do mock UN style conferences. We work closely with Liverpool World Centre on this, and in the past have worked closely on this kind of work with Energy Projects Plus as well. And the idea really is for children to kind of participate, and their teachers, in an inquiry-based approach to education. So it's so practical type things, so they role play as part of the conference, and they work up to that. So they may be kind of a group that represents a country where raw materials come from for our t-shirts, for instance, and they start to look really in depth at the kind of impact of that work on that local environment and those local people, but looking at international supply chains and clearly what happens to all this stuff when it's done and dusted with us. So that's that area. And then final one is faith and climate action, as you'd expect. Given our roots, some of our team are members of religious faith communities. We work very closely with faith communities on climate change. That's kind of practical as well as kind of spiritual. If you think about the amount of buildings that faith communities have, and a lot of those are kind of a bit of a challenge from a carbon footprint point of view. But so we work quite closely with them on a range of fronts. So decarbonising buildings and travel is clearly a key one at this moment in time, and we're working across all of the different faiths on this, but also supporting faith-led climate activism as well. So this is a recent snapshot on the Make Polluters Pay Day of Action a few weeks ago, where we joined with different faith communities, Christian Aid and others. Last weekend, just as a passing shot, last weekend, Margaret, Peter were representing Transition Towns, Energy Projects Plus, lots of other local organisations represented, from Liverpool Cloth Nappies, the Refill Folk, all sorts of people, at an eco-church event in Egbert that brought together different eco-churches from across South Liverpool to share what they're doing, how they can support each other, that networking thing again, but crucially reaching out beyond the faith communities. And I'd say that's a core thing about our work, whether we're working with faith communities or settled communities, geographical communities, whatever those communities are, it's reaching out of those strands into activism, whatever that looks like for people, whether that's civil disobedience or beyond. But also the practical, how can we share our knowledge and skills to make and shape the places we want? How can we kind of fully realise our connection with the earth as individuals and with each other. So I'll leave it there because I've asked to brief it down. So thanks very much. Just to say, I've got some saved seeds here. I'll pop out at lunchtime. Please do help yourself. And then there's a few flyers about different groups we've got, all fully funded. Thank you.